Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. Joining us on the phones right now, former chief strategist for Ted Cruz, owner of J2 Strategies, political consultant, good friend of the show, Jason Johnson. Welcome back. How are you today, Jason?
Doing great. How are you, Chad? How's Lubbock, Texas?
Things are going well. Now, last time we had you on, you were smoking a few things. Are you got the smoker fired up this morning?
Not this morning, but
okay.
I think we're going to fire up this weekend and do us a couple of briskets.
There you go. That sounds pretty good. See, next time we need to, I don't know how we do this, but, maybe just do the show from your place. And,
I like it. We can do it.
Yeah, and we can fire up the smoker. My producer, Jody, does not like that plan because he has to stay here. Jason, we've got a circus going on in the 2020 Democrat primary.
Ooh.
Just overall right now, what are your just, I guess, your overall thoughts on what's going on with the Democrats right now?
My overall thoughts are that the president has them right where he wants them.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Something that I kind of concluded a long time ago, as in about 3 years ago, is when it comes to our politics from a macro level, nuance is dead. Right? It's all about the big contrast. And, folks in Lubbock, folks across most of the country really don't pay attention to the most of the details because they're out doing what we're supposed to do, living our lives, raising our families. And Donald Trump is really a master at setting up that stark contrast from a high level. And to a person, with some exceptions, every now and then you see that maybe, Sleepy Joe gets it. He tries not to fall into the trap. But to a person, everyone running for the Democratic nomination has fallen into that trap, and it's very difficult, I believe, for anyone who is not a hardcore partisan on the left to look at these guys and think, wow, they're radical. And even if you don't want to put a label on it, if you're out there and you're a so-called independent, if you're thinking about voting for a Democrat, not just for president, for Congress, for anything in 2020, then you have to really not like what's going on in the country economically and all the rest, and you have to conclude, you've concluded, I want to dramatically take a turn in this country. That's the way this whole thing is set up, without using any of the labels. It's dramatic. You go back to 2008, remember? Barack Obama, hope and change. Take the hope out of it. If you're interested in this lot of Democratic candidates, you're saying, I want radical, dramatic change in America from what we have today.
Jason, you bring up a really good point, and that is with Obama. No matter how people felt about Obama, his message of hope and change, that inspired a lot of people. Obviously, he won twice. And hope and change inspired people. I don't see an inspirational message from any of these Democrats. It is, the country is so bad and so evil, we've got to dramatically change this nation.
Yeah, and carry on with that comparison a moment, Chad. Rewind and let's remember the context and everything that was going on in 2008, right? We were just barely removed from the worst tragedy on America's soil in our history, 9/11, right? Our economy is crashing, right? We have Wall Street. We were in a bad spot in many ways. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to today, and it couldn't be more different. And so you have this crop of candidates who they really can't attack the economy. We know that. Sure, there are people still struggling, but in a capitalist society, there are always going to be people who are still climbing the ladder. And there's no hope there. There's no inspirational message. Again, I feel like Biden started off sort of kind of trying it every now and then, at least giving it lip service, but he's thrown it out as well. And there's an old saying about presidential campaigns. There's two of them. One's like, who do you want to have a beer with? But the other is, whoever offers the most inspirational, uplifting, makes me believe I can do it sort of message usually wins. And I don't care who you are. You can't possibly look at this crop of candidates and say, "Ooh, I feel good about that. I feel better. I feel things are going to be better." Unless you're some, again, leftist social justice warrior who's convinced that America is evil.
Yeah, I'm visiting with Jason Johnson here on the Chad Hasty Show. Let's talk about Joe Biden. I'm still convinced that he is a very weak front runner. And, Jason, every single time I see this guy on TV, it just looks like he's going through the motions. He does look tired. I'm not trying to say that he's too old to be in this thing because, hell, Bernie Sanders has more energy than Joe Biden does. I mean, it's just like Joe Biden's just there. And you compare him to an Elizabeth Warren, you compare him to Bernie or Kamala. To me, he's just so weak right now.
I couldn't agree more. And I'll tell you something that really said a lot to me. If you'll recall, after the first debate, after Kamala Harris, I wouldn't say it was a haymaker, really just jabbed him a couple of times, and he stumbled and didn't know what to do. There was an interview soon after that first debate because all of Biden's consultants realized, man, we're in trouble here. And he was asked, what about that moment when Kamala Harris challenged you on busing? What were you thinking? And he said two things. One, he said, I didn't expect the attack, which to me is just political malpractice.
Right.
But as important, he followed up and he said, I didn't expect it from her. She knew Bo. Bo being his son who passed away. Bo was the attorney general, I believe it was of Delaware, at the same time that Kamala Harris was the attorney general of California. And if you listen to his follow-up and you watch his body language, what I read there was, how I just can't believe anyone would attack me. It was a little bit of the Hillary Clinton-itis of, I've been around for a long time. It's my turn. I don't expect anyone to challenge me, and so I don't really have to fight. And that is a mindset of someone who's going to have a very difficult time, who definitely is a weak front runner, as you put it, but in his mind, he can't possibly understand why. He's been around for 48 years, right? He was Barack Obama's vice president. And I think that is really creeped into him, and it's informing the way he approaches it. I mean, you talk about not having energy. They purposely keep the guy off the road, and there have been insiders who've leaked to the press who've said there's two reasons. One is because they do have an energy issue. They don't want to, quote-unquote, wear him out too early. And the other, as we know, is he's prone to pretty crazy gaffes. Mm-hmm. And so he may make it through, Chad, but my money's still on he doesn't. The only other thing I'll add, I did go back and watch, because I'm a nerd and do these things, a lot of his 2008 debate performances, and I'll give him credit. Back in 2008, he actually did a good, I'm talking about in the primary,
sure.
He did a pretty good job. He was aggressive.
Yes.
He was good at, as Trump says, counterpunching. He was light on his feet. I think we'll see him attempt to do more of that in this next debate. But I'm not saying this just because the president says he's lost a step and labels him sleepy. I think we'll see. Has age really caught up to him, and does he have the ability to perform the way he did in 2008? Because I think his campaign knows he's got to now.
Yeah.
So I think this next debate next week really will tell us a lot about his mindset and his ability, his agility as a candidate.
Yeah, we do have another debate coming up, and how do you think that just the process of these debates are going? Because next week, you've got again 2 different debates. On the first night, I think it's Biden. No, it's going to be Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Buttigieg, and then the bunch of zeros who are on stage. And then the second night, you've got Biden and Kamala, and the other bunch of zeros on stage as well.
Yep. And my short answer, Chad, is I think that, we've only had one. I think the debates are doing their job. You look at, you've already had one of the zeros drop out. there are stories this morning about our great Texan, Robert Francis O'Rourke, that he is, I mean, the writing's on the wall. And a part of that is the timing after that first debate. You had the second quarter of fundraising reports come out. And essentially, the only people who raised any money in the second quarter were Biden, Warren, Harris, Buttigieg, and who am I forgetting there, Chad? The other top tier one that I can't think of. Biden, Warren,
Biden, Warren, Kamala,
right?
Yeah.
And so they are being starved not only of oxygen in terms of earned media, but these debate performances, if they don't take advantage of them, it starves them of money, and most of them spent more in the second quarter than they raised. And so I think we'll see another culling after this second debate, even without the DNC raising their standards of who can make the next rounds of debates. I think they're working in that regard. And then also, back to what we were talking about in the beginning, this, macro at a high level contrast, it's proving the president's point about how far left and how radical all of them are. I do think, it's obvious, but maybe Joe's just unlucky, but drawing Kamala Harris to be on stage with him, we're going to see some fireworks there. And I'll tell you what, she was a prosecutor, and she's good. And there's a lot more. She really took the easiest swipe at him. I've gone through his record doing the research. It's going to get real interesting, and it'll be real interesting to see if he can handle it.
Yeah, absolutely. Visiting with Jason Johnson. Jason, before I let you go, you said the writing's on the wall for Beto O'Rourke, and I think just about everybody knows that. I think he probably knows that as well. What would you peg the chances of him getting into the Senate race against Cornyn?
Not very high. Not very high. I happen to know, and I can't. There's been some speculation about it, but I have literally one friend who's an elected office holder and has a D next to his or her name, and I know there's a pretty big announcement coming. In fact, next week, and from someone else who's going to run on the Democratic side, and I think that will make it very difficult for Beto to get back in. Not to mention, there comes a point in time, just a humiliation factor, and from your supporters' point of view, a fatigue factor.
Yeah.
Think about when he ran against Cruz, he raised all that money. They believed he was going to win, and he even though it's close, got it handed to him. And then the same thing, the Vanity Fair cover coming into the race for president. Oh, he's the chosen one, and he sizzles out. I think he needs to go eat some more New Mexico dirt and, take a back seat and a long look to think about what he really ought to do with his life.
Absolutely. Jason Johnson, we appreciate your time as always, and I'm sure we'll be visiting with you again soon. Owner J2 Strategies, always good stuff, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good one. That's Jason Johnson here on the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk KFYO.